you're in a perfect ideal world, how do you actually pay for this? And this happiness factor, even if you're distributing a bunch of money, realistically, in order to make it happen, if you're taxed at 60 to 70%, that cuts away a ton of it anyway.
We're not saying that welfare and the universal basic income are necessarily both needed. We're saying other systems where there's gaps might still be needed.
What's a good number that everyone gets? Like, that seems, again, like a slippery slope to me, but you start just giving that out to everyone, it's going to destabilize the entire economy.
Most people are just in echo chambers, and they're listening to that which rings well with them. We're talking about capitalism versus socialism. We're going to listen to both sides.
I know this is going to sound crazy, but we as humans have imagined our systems. We've imagined a system in which banks and major corporations are in charge. And we have given them the power to continue that way. Banks don't have that money. It's not real. So if we're going to imagine a better future, how about we take some of that money that's real or not, and we put it towards making our society better, and then watch as it returns back to us tenfold.
So you're saying that money is an imaginative thing that doesn't really exist. It's not backed by securities or commodities or different things, which that's my understanding of money and how it works, is that it is backed by securities and commodities and GDP. But if it is imaginative and it's this thing that doesn't matter, then why is giving it out the solution? Like I don't understand it. You're saying I'm hearing it's not important, but yet the solution is to give it out.
I'm saying that we imagined it back before we had money. People used shells, people used whatever they had, or bartering systems. We've created a fantastic system that works pretty well, but we need to look forward and ahead and stop being so limited and frightened of the ideas that we have of how money works.
The liberal social idea, left long enough without conservative thought coming in and changing it, will actually eventually correct and get to a better place. Yet that's never, ever happened ever.
Basically, we have two opposing systems of thought happening. And so we're basically stagnated oftentimes because we're not really moving forward. We move forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards, which is good in some ways because they are checking each other. We need governments to check each other, and we need different voices to check these things.
What do you mean by money doesn't exist or that it's not real?
I mean that we have created in the world how we structure our economy, and that money means something now that it hasn't always meant, and that we haven't even always had money as a system as Homo sapiens. Historically, Homo sapiens didn't necessarily use systems similar to this. So we've created this imaginative system. Banks leverage money that doesn't exist. We all know that that's debt and how it all works. They have money that isn't even real. They will take, let's say they got $1,000 from somebody, and then they get somebody requesting a loan for $2,000. They will give that $2,000, and half of that basically, or they'll give that $1,000, and they'll still have basically nothing in the system to actually show for it but people keep on putting money in there, so they have just enough to basically, it's a very complicated concept, and I'm no economist by any means, but basically a lot of what we're looking at is something that we just trust because we've developed it as a system.
So I totally agree with you. Like, we imagined a great system. Like, I totally agree. Like, it's like we took a non-existent thing and through innovation and through that, we've made a great, with some holes and some things that need to be fixed for sure, but a great system. And that I totally agree with. Like, and the way that I understand, and again, I'm no economist. I don't want to, speak as some sort of pure expert on this, but my understanding of that, the reason why that works is because it's backed by securities and commodities and other things. So that what you're talking about when the bank is loaning that out, it's because they're invested in gold or oil or something like that. That's worth a set amount of money. Now that market is always changing. And what we see in things like the 2008 housing crash, when that goes unchecked and unregulated, we see what happens when they start folding in debts to other debts, and it gets really messy, and then the whole system compacts on itself, which I believe is what Michelle was talking about with the way our country's headed, is the same way the housing market economy was. What happened is the debts kept folding into each other. No one cared. It wasn't being checked. It was kept folding in, and then it eventually boom, and millions of people in the States were homeless immediately. And the world economy, not just in the States, but the world economy was destabilized. And that was with just the housing market. So that was one market that exists within that we're talking about across. Now we have technology. We have companies like Amazon and Tesla and these companies. That's a whole new, like, uncharted territory. But we're not even talking about oil and gold and silver and these other commodities that have been around longer than we ever have been. That's why the economy works, is because it's backed by commodities and securities.
When you look at Venezuela, where they are taking, because we're talking about when it collapsed, where nothing's worth anything anymore, and so you've got wheelbarrows full of money just to buy a little loaf of bread, and the people are starving and they're standing in line, or someone that has studied and spent all their years studying to be a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and they're doing 5, 6, 7 jobs just to be able to eat because the whole economy collapsed. And then what happens is then the global banks come in, and then they get them out of debt, and then they own them. And that is the risk, I think, more than anything, is who's going to own our countries, what's going to actually happen. It will, because if the heart is to have the people have a say, if the heart is the people's best interests and the welfare of the people and the people's voices and making sure people are brought up to a level, you want that to happen. But can that really happen if the whole economy collapses? Somebody will have the power, and they probably don't care so much about the welfare of the people.
When you try to reimagine something, which I think you guys have a good heart in trying to reimagine, when that hits reality and causes what's always happened in human history, it causes so much pain and so much corruption. So I think that what you're doing is imaginative, but when imaginative ideas hit reality, then we see what happens in human history.
Let's talk about practicality then, because the thing about, I know that she's philosophizing a little bit, and showing, like, her fascination with that, but there is a practicality to it. I know you go, where's the money? Where's this? Where's that? But what we're saying is it's there. It's already there. Like, I know you don't see it because there's so many things happening, but the money is actually there. Yes, there's a lot of debt there too, and we don't want to be owned by the banks or anything like that. But when you invest in people, you will see the returns, and that money will come back so much more than what it started off with. And that is what's been shown in proper social democracy. So the problem is you're talking about countries who were already in a bad place, or maybe just starting to build their legs up. They're just starting to get out there in the world. And they implemented a very radical system that all of a sudden, just took the legs out from under them. They hadn't actually taken the time to make practical steps. If you throw money everywhere, of course you're going to have issues. But if a country like Canada, we're not stupid, and neither are they. But we know, all of us know, that we both have an important part of this and an important view. And so I feel like if we implemented our views in a way that allows the helping of others and allows others, the people who want to grow in free market, to have that happen, we can have this.
You're still talking ideals, though. So if you said at the beginning of the sentence, let's get practical. So please get very practical with me.
Okay,
Tell me what that's coming from.
All right. The universal basic income was shown to be successful in both tests in Canada. Practically speaking.
Sorry. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You're still talking ideals. Where does that money actually come from in full reality that we're in right now? Where does the universal basic income that you're paying to people come from?
Comes from taxes.
So you do know that when you spend more than you're currently able to tax, what happens is the government currently borrows from the global banks. Currently, our government borrows from global banks. Right now, we are in debt from global banks. And to get out of debt, your grandchildren will still be paying. Right now, today, currently, doesn't matter how much you expand in. So, it's always about where's the money going to come from and how are you going to distribute the money. And I think we're all in agreement that people shouldn't be disadvantaged, and we should probably direct resources to help people. But the issue right now is if there's more spending going on than you currently can tax. And you can't even look at big corporations because they leave.
And that's what happened in the Nordic countries when they did that, like, which is always used as the example. Like, what I'm hearing from you guys, and again, I could be hearing it wrong, so I want to give you the opportunity to correct me. But what I'm hearing is you want to deprivatize these things and make them government controlled. But when they did that in Sweden, in these Nordic countries that you're talking about, Denmark, it was not good. And they had to reverse it. They had to re-privatize it because it completely sucked.
Yeah, because basically what happened was they privatized everything initially, which was problematic, and then they did the opposite. So what we're saying is that the things that create basic human rights and needs being met should be captured by the government, it should be regulated by the government. And then on top of that, there's a free market for everything else. And that is a large part of where that money comes in. And that's actually what they've done in those countries is they've said, okay, so the government is going to handle all these aspects of human rights. And then we're going to come in and we're going to make money on all the fun stuff that people want to have and all the things that people look forward to in life.
So practically then, would you prefer that we do something like that and then become more isolationist as they are
No.
and not in, okay.
That is their personal choice. That has nothing to do with their economy. That doesn't have anything to do with
because it doesn't work otherwise.
No, that's not true. That's not true at all.
Well, what country has made it work historically? How do you
that's
know
what we're trying
Canada
to create.
so far.
In Canada, we're trying to create a country that can do that.
Yes.
Canada's close now, but we are missing some pieces.
But I just had a conversation with a First Nation gal. She's a person that I know. She's a daughter of a chief, where the people had been given a basic income all the time. And their societies have been in very, very difficult situations. And they're now breaking out. And so some of the reserves have decided they do not want to do this anymore. It has not helped their people. And they're living in poverty. There's addiction, there's problems. And so now they've got studies and they're actually demonstrating and proving when they've stopped that and they've actually gone away from some of the government funding and they became self-sustained and started enterprises, they are creating wealth and the happy scale is going way up. The addictions are going down. Everything is changing because they're not dependent on government funding for their basic needs and the community is engaging in work. I'm even looking at what's happened with COVID right now because I'm talked with some young guys that are doing business. They might just have a small business, like maybe they're electricians or whatever, and they said, my gosh, during COVID season, you've never seen so many hot tubs purchased and people are sitting at home. And then you had restaurant owners and people saying, I can't get our people to come back to work because they're sitting on CERB right now. They won't come back to work. And there was a huge, huge problem.
I do think there are people buying a lot of things up right now that have the extra income because they enjoy that. And what you'll see is that people aren't going back to work because they hate their job. And because they don't have the access to build a life on a job that they actually don't hate. They are currently deciding to stay home because they're not getting paid much more by their work. Why would they go back to a job that doesn't pay them well?
Well, exactly. And that's
so the jobs should be treating people better and should be paying them better.
Well,
and then people would actually come back because people do like to work. They are meaning making by nature inherently. So there's always going to be leeches on all ends of society. No matter what we do, there will always be some people who take advantage. So think about Amazon CEO right now is making more money than anybody in the world, more money than anybody even needs to run a country pretty much. And yet his people work for minimum wage, hardly be getting breaks. This is capitalism. No checks or balances whatsoever in that system. They have no union to protect them. They are working for $15 an hour. This is Amazon that is underpaying their market. And while Jeff Bezos makes billions, he's going to be a trillionaire. He is on right now. I don't know if people understand. It takes a million to be a billionaire. Think about how much $1 trillion is. He's on track to become that, and his people are making next to nothing. And if a government decides that they want to do anything, then he's like, well, that's all right. I'll just move to another country who doesn't have checks and balances.
Across Canada, the very high percentage of what feeds our people are small businesses. They're not big corporations. And so the challenge, if you've ever been a small business owner, and the amount of that you're getting, that you have to pay both for your employee and your employee benefits and all of the rules and the labor laws and everything else, many small businesses just never make it because they just cannot afford it.
So what if the government was paying for those benefits instead of the restaurants and the small companies? What if that was already covered so that they didn't have to do that? And then what if they paid their people more and it was initially a little bit painful, but they started to notice people putting that money back into them because they can afford the resources?
If this has got to happen now, in order to invest in the future, where does the money come from now?
We have to put our eggs in a few baskets here. We're going to have to tax. We're going to have to look at allocating funds that we're already allocating in more meaningful ways.
Okay.
And we're going to have to look at some debt in different areas. And we just want to make sure we don't spend it all in one place because they will come after us. Absolutely. So we need to make sure that there's a number of different ways that this is being allocated and the resources are being brought in.
So then how do you decide So you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and you're reallocating. So, but how do you decide who you're going to take from? What kind of criteria do you use to decide on who gets the income? And how do we allocate funds?
Under a socialist style democracy, you would see that most people, debt would be different because people wouldn't be in debt for basic resources. You wouldn't be in debt because you went to school. It's because we're investing in people where we will see the return from people as well. So the investment
But that's
might
what we're
initially
doing now. Like that's what we do now. Like when we invest
in some people now.
Like even if we take the bad examples you're talking about, right? Like Amazon and Bezos and Elon Musk, right? Like when I invest in those companies, people make those companies turn profits. Like those like it's the people that, like Jeff Bezos is an exceptional mind, regardless of what I think he's paying his employees and whether that's fair or not. He's an exceptional mind for solving problems for people and then monetizing that. Like you don't get to that position if you're not exceptional at that. And same with Elon Musk. He made an electronic car, which is virtually impossible. And then he made a rocket that was a quarter of the price that NASA was making it. And then he strapped that electric car to that rocket and launched it into space. So when I invest into Tesla, I'm investing into him because he can solve problems that I can't solve. Like I can sit here and you can call him a sociopath or whatever, a psychopath. He is going to be able to solve problems on a wide scale way better than he's proven that to be the case, right? Like he has solved problems that I am not going to tackle, and I'm not going to aim to do that. And so if I were to invest my personal finances into a company being like, wow, I think that this guy's doing amazing things and exceptional things. That's what the market, when you're investing into those people, into those business owners. You're not just investing it into the company. The company doesn't exist without those people and their exceptional ability to be able to do that. So what I don't understand is like what you're saying is that the people aren't getting it, but the people are getting it. The exceptional people are getting it.
No, he's not exceptional. There are probably a lot of people in the world who could do things just as well as he is and haven't had the same opportunities.
You don't think that Elon Musk is an exceptional human being?
I think he's an exceptional human being. I think there are a lot of exceptional human beings.
He has a lot of money to back that.
He has a lot of money to make his dreams a reality. And I think that we assume that he's some special human because of it, but he's just had all the resources to make his dreams a reality. I think other people could easily be as exceptional that don't have that capacity. So if we actually put that money into more than just the few wealthy people that are exceptional, we'll see more exceptional ideas and things come up in our society that make our world a better place in general.
But how do you think he acquired, like he made a program by the age of 12? Like, do you know that he was selling software at the age of 12? Like I, at the age of 12, like, I don't know what I was doing, trading Pokemon cards, probably, but like, and maybe trying to make money on that even, I don't even remember, but like his brain, and again, I'm not trying to make Elon Musk a god here. What I'm saying is that he's an exceptional individual, and that's how he's acquired those resources, is through.
That's not how. It's helped, but he had resources. Those resources were already to an extent available to him based on where he was born, and due to his gender and due to his race.
From what I can hear from both sides is that I think there's an agreement that we don't want to see people oppressed and not be giving advantage. There might be some disagreement about what causes them to be disadvantaged, because we see situations where people have been disadvantaged and they came out of that without a hand up, believing that the majority of the people are motivated to work, that human beings are good investments. If we could take away the stress of just, what they have to, to deal with every single day just for basic living, then we could bring them up in such a way that then they would be able to get educated and they would be able to give back. They would be able to contribute back. And so it's worth the investment. I think there's still disagreement on, first of all, where the money comes from. Secondly, the fact that it could put, is it worth investing in people immediately now and then having generations of debt and global banks owning your country? Is that risk worth it to do it that way?
So here's the interesting thing. Like, the psychology studies have shown empirically that success in business and in finances, the two top trait predictors for that are intelligence and conscientiousness. Like, that's a psychological study that has been proven across, like, it's like a universally known thing in psychology. So people that are intelligent and hardworking deal with the hard, complex problems and solve those problems. Like that's what I'm trying to get to, is that's been proven. That is one of the positives, I think, of capitalism, is that we've seen that.
Those are absolutely fundamentally the top predictors of success, but that's assuming that you already have a place on the market, that you get there. If you don't even get there, those two things are going to do nothing for you.
But what I don't understand is that you're saying that there's not an opportunity for those people to get there. But how do you explain the Elon Musks of the world, or the Michael Jordan who was cut from his high school basketball team? Like, how do you explain, like, if they're not able to break through this barrier, how does that happen?
They're the exceptions to a very bad rule. Yeah. There are exceptions to every rule. They actually prove the rule, really.
And I know that we look at societal, systemic issues and societal issues that disadvantage people, but you also have to look at, it's not just socialization. There are also entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs thrive on risk and work ethic. And there's things consistently over time in terms of any kind of personality test, from young to old, from the time they're small children, doesn't matter what generation they're in, you're going to see kind of markers of what would make an entrepreneur. And true entrepreneurs are always envisioning stuff, and they're always taking risks, and they're always solving problems, and and adversity actually causes them to thrive more than less for true entrepreneurs. And not every person in society is going to be an entrepreneur. When we're talking about economics, I think that's the part too. You can't leave out those variables. You can't say that the reason why everybody doesn't have a business is because they were disadvantaged. Sometimes it literally is personality. And there are some things that are conducive to helping support entrepreneurs, and there's other things that are not. And most entrepreneurs that are really going after it, they go after investors, and they understand a business plan, and they understand how to put that business plan together and how to pull investors. Women do it, minorities do it, anyone, and they're extremely successful all over the world. They don't ask the government to give them a hands up so they can start a business. They actually get investors, and then they have to pay them back, and it's part of the risk or whatever, and it's part of the thing that they do. Now, we do get that there are those that have had lots of money to begin with, and they've had a better start, and they might have had more opportunities.
I think it's safe to say that none of us here have the economic experience and education to practically tell each other, this is what we want, and this is exactly how to make it work in today's world. None of us have that experience, especially not either of us. We've never actually, this has been a big educational experience for us to spend this time thinking about this kind of stuff. So we really appreciate you guys giving us a chance to talk about it and look at where the holes are and look at where the arguments are, and continue that education.
I don't wish upon anybody to suffer not having basic fundamental, needs met. I don't agree with that at all. I just think that probably it's a little bit more complex, the solution on how to do it. I think if there was a conversation on how it could really be done really well, and without costing a nation to collapse potentially with debt, if there was a creative way, I think that there'd be a lot more ears opening up to the ideas, because I sure am.